Welcome to Super Grow Stocks. This is Morris. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at Facebook, and as we look at this particular chart, you'll just note I want to point a couple things out. We'll be looking at a daily chart as well and breaking down the individual action on what's going on the daily chart, so you can see individual days. On this particular chart, we're looking at a weekly, and this chart goes all the way back here to March 2016. The blue lines on the chart are the buy points. Now these are the cycle buys, and we call these expansion cycle buys. This is where we get a new entry buy in our proprietary model system, and you can see that the results are pretty astounding. What has happened here recently, and we'll talk about these candlesticks in a few moments. This was all the negative news Zuckerberg brought before Congress, and the stock was pressured lower. And at this particular point, you can see on the chart that after that point in time, it reversed strongly and went higher. Now, what I would point out on this chart, as the bottom here, the low was being put in Facebook right here, what you see here are long tails on these candlesticks. The long tails are reflective. When you see this, particularly on a weekly chart, it's indicative of buying pressure, and buying pressure it was indeed. Now, I've just moved our chart here no longer to the long-term chart, but literally to this daily, just going back to this particular chart. We're going out just to the beginning here of 2018 and the action. And there's a couple things we like to do here at SGS on the candlestick analysis. The first one is to identify areas of resistance. And so we're looking for what we call boss candlesticks. This right here ended up being a boss candlestick formation. It was a bearish Harami stick, and what it did was really it was confirmed later that that's what was going on, and then we got into this gap area right here, and from there this whole market went into the corrective mode. Now, we talked about the long tails, buying pressure. That all happened right here. We'll go back to that weekly chart in a moment. But as this was happening, and by the way, this was really confirmed by that weekly chart. Just to go back to the weekly, there it is. That mess that I put the blue box around on the previous chart, that is this area right here. Remember, the weekly candlesticks are a whole 1 week of trading, so these long tails are reflective of buying pressure. And again, that is this area right here. Now, the next thing I would point out on the chart, and it's quite positive, number one, we get the long tails. Again, this was the long tails of buying pressure, and then the reversal. Now, it's always interesting, and what you're looking for in candlestick analysis is this kind of indecision after a move in one direction. That's exactly what we got. And from there, I'm going to point out here a gap, right? See this gap right here? These gaps are very important after a consolidation because it confirms the long tails we looked at on the weekly chart. And then if you will note, there's a further confirmation right here. This big gap right through here as we blasted higher. So the confirmation move count came down here. We get a gap up, pulls back, and then you notice the small body on this particular candlestick and then a gap. That is called the trader's best friend, and it certainly ignited the stock higher. Where we're at this current moment is an area where we're beginning to consolidate some of the recent gains, and we've also moved up into an area of slight resistance, and maybe a little bit more than slight. We're going to have to see how that one plays out. But as we look at the stock and where we're at on the overall market, this is what I'm seeing on Facebook. We have got a very similar setup to what we did in March 2017 when price was 130. The price ultimately rallied all the way up to 195 before it went into confirmed correction, as we were looking at on the daily chart, which was really confirmed right in this area. Then the big correction down, and now a fresh expansion buy cycle after all of the positive that we witnessed here on this daily chart on the gapping and the confirmation of an uptrend. Yes, consolidating a little bit now, but with a fresh expansion cycle in hand, this looks like a solid place to be in Facebook, and we are at SGS. That's all for now. This is Morris saying